But also notice that the world doesn't end, and that nobody from the audience comes running up to you saying, "You made a mistake." Yeah, that's really important. It actually seems so obvious, but it's really not, because that fear is still deeply rooted in us. If we make a mistake, or that the conductor will come up to us afterwards and give us a hard time, that's not going to happen. What I'm telling you today isn't something you'll learn in music school, not from your saxophone teacher, not from me, but only out there in the real world. Glad to have you here for a new video. Today I want to talk about a really important topic, not just when it comes to playing saxophone, but in general, whenever you play an instrument. Specifically, I want to share 5 points with you that you simply can't learn from a teacher. No matter how great your teacher is, or which school or course you're taking, there are things you'll only learn somewhere else, out there. What does out there mean? On stage. It's kind of like this. Imagine you're in psychotherapy. You go to your therapist and get some strategies, and maybe you can change your life and get a handle on your behavior. But then, when you walk out the door, it's up to you. Do you actually do what you were told? Do you put those things into practice, or do you not? It's absolutely essential when making music. And for me, this is just part of it, that you play, that you perform for others. And I know how hard that is for so many students. For some, it's unthinkable, especially if you started learning an instrument as an adult, in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, and maybe have no prior experience at all. Or even worse, you had to perform as a child with the dreaded recorder. No offense to that instrument. It could just as well be any other, like piano or guitar. You had to play in front of others with that instrument. So, the emphasis is on had to. And of course, something gets stored up here in your mind. It has to do with being forced, and maybe you didn't do it the way your parents or whoever wanted you to had imagined. And just like that, those fears are there. And that's obviously a shame, because it's really important, even for your musical development, to simply show what you can do. If you think about sports or something like that, it's not for nothing that the stadium is full of fans, or at a championship, track and field, whatever it is, there are people sitting around watching, and it's not just for commercial reasons. Sure, you can question how big football has gotten, but it's also one of those things. It was already like that with the ancient Greeks. It's also about appreciation. You go there, you've achieved something, and you show it to others. You also become an inspiration, a kind of role model. And then there are 5 things you can learn when you get on stage and dare to perform. Number 1 is, you can overcome fears. The biggest fear at first is simply daring to do it at all. And when I say stage, I don't mean you have to think of performing in front of 500 people right away, but just that you take part in a recital. There are so many possibilities. Maybe you're enrolled at a music school. There are definitely things like podium recitals or class music sessions, or whatever they're called. So, at every music school in Germany, I'm absolutely certain there are opportunities to perform. And of course, it also depends a bit on your teacher, whether they say, "Hey, you can perform," or whether they don't even mention it to you. But just give it a try. Talk to your teacher and say, "Hey, I'd like to perform sometime." And the biggest fear, which I see again and again with adult students, is, well, then I'll be standing next to a 10-year-old and totally mess up. You need to get that out of your head. That's a really silly thought that just holds you back, because that 10-year-old is at a completely different stage. Yeah, and why should he or she take away your chance to go down this path, just because you've decided to learn an instrument again at a later age? Absolutely. If you think about it a bit more, it's actually a really silly idea. So get rid of it, overcome your fear, sign up for the recital, and then it's also a question of what you'll play there. You can realistically assess it yourself or together with your teacher, figure it out, and then just get to know what it's like to go on stage and play in front of people. Or if you're completely on your own, ask your family, ask friends, ask acquaintances. At a street festival, at a party, just take out your instrument and play something for everyone. The second point, once you've overcome your fear, or the second point after overcoming fear, is that you learn to deal with mistakes and accept them. I keep hearing, whenever someone has played something, even in lessons, oh, I messed up here again. I played that badly. And this and that and that. Yeah, and that actually ruins the whole performance, everything. There are often so many good things that you just don't see, because they're all overshadowed by the three things that maybe still aren't working. When you're on stage, when you're performing, and the more often you do it, you'll notice that you always make mistakes. And I'd like to claim that there are very, very few people, even professionals, who don't make any mistakes at all, because mistakes are also relative. Of course, star violinist and Sophie Mutter will play the 16th and 32nd runs cleanly, but she also has a completely different standard. And for her, maybe if she doesn't play the passage musically convincingly, that might be the mistake. So these mistakes are always relative. The better you play, the higher your standards become, and the mistakes will always remain. So get used to accepting mistakes. And how can you best learn that? Go on stage, perform, make mistakes, and then you'll accept them. What you'll also notice when you go on stage and perform. Point number 3, your perception will usually be very different from that of the listeners. That means you'll probably always think, I played badly or I played worse, while the listeners will always say, wow, that was great. So beautiful. Wow, I never would have thought that. That's also a kind of mechanism that's just inside many people. To belittle yourself, to immediately devalue what you've done. Of course, not everything is right, and of course, not everything is good. But you also have to look at it from that perspective. Music is also about that. You want to give people a good time, and someone goes to a concert, listens to it, and then you go there and immediately tell your acquaintance, your friend, your family member, I didn't do that right. I did that wrong, that wasn't good. That's also a bit of a disillusionment. So it's also important to stand by what you've done and to allow it when someone says, hey, I thought that was great, because you're always your own biggest critic and you have to learn to accept inside yourself that you make mistakes. But people will reflect something completely different back to you, and it's important to accept that too. I remember my time with the Signum Saxophone Quartet, when we played a lot of concerts. And of course, there were always things. We'd come off stage and go to the dressing room, and sometimes the mood was so bad you could hear a pin drop. That's how tense it was. And then we'd go out, and people thought it was great. They were in such a good mood. And sometimes we came out there with faces like thunder. And that's just because we were so dissatisfied with ourselves, even though people had a completely different perception. It's just crazy. So music is also, in a way, show business. Without using the word show, these days you have to be a bit careful, since it quickly turns into talk about fakes and things like that. It's not about pretending or putting on an act, but it is about standing by what you do, what you create on stage, and being able to say, this is what I can do. That's it. Number 4, what you learn when you go on stage and make music is to be completely in the moment. Being in the moment really means being present, focusing on what you're playing, and shutting everything else out. And if you think about it for a moment, how good that actually is. Yeah, when it comes to mindfulness, meditation, where we're always told to just sit down, breathe, and not think about anything, or at least try not to think about anything. And with something like this, you have exactly the opportunity to do that. You're completely absorbed in one thing, and everything else, no matter what's happening around you, just doesn't matter. And if you look at your favorite artists, no matter the genre, whether it's pop, rock, folk, festival, or classical, when you watch how deeply immersed they are, for them, there's only what they're doing in that moment, in that very instant. You're so absorbed in what you're doing, and the more often you do it, the deeper you get into it, of course. Yeah, so being in the moment is something you can really practice well. When you're playing your stuff on stage, because you also have that focus. Yeah, people are obviously focused on you, and you're in this magical energy situation. Everyone is listening to you, or you're part of an orchestra. Everyone is listening to the orchestra or the ensemble, and you're playing along. And this energy is really special because it transfers from the audience as well, not just from the ensemble or the orchestra or the musician, but the other way around too. It's a mutual interaction. That's why some musicians talk about it. Playing there is so hard because the audience is tough to crack. And I love playing there because you just feel so comfortable. It's not just the beautiful hall or the good acoustics, but also the people. It's different when you rehearse in an empty hall compared to when there are 150 or 1,000 or even 10,000 people inside. A completely different energy. Number 5 is, you learn to understand music as a whole. You realize that you're really just the medium through which the music is transmitted, and you don't see yourself as quite so important anymore. I'm already talking now. When you've done this very, very often, when you're very advanced, you don't see yourself as so important anymore. You become one with the music on stage, and then it doesn't really matter so much whether every note is perfectly in place, whether every rhythm is absolutely correct. Yeah, of course that's debatable, and I know I'm sticking my neck out a bit here. It's my experience. I've played over 500 concerts on stage with an ensemble, from 20 people to over 2,000 people. I've experienced a lot of things, and I've had moments in concerts where, as a quartet, we managed to create something like a fifth person. This fifth person hovered above the quartet. Yeah, and that's something really special. I would say that it takes a lot of time to achieve something like that, to get to that point, because you have to have so many things automated, like all the technical processes, the pieces you play, the musical phrasing, the interplay. You have to know each other, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. And I also wouldn't say that it's impossible for amateur musicians or dedicated hobbyists. So what does that actually mean for you specifically? If you want to overcome your fears, go out on stage, try to perform, try to find a place where you can play in front of others. It doesn't matter whether it's in front of 3 people or 100. Try to organize a performance for yourself. Deliberately play mistakes. Notice that you make mistakes, but also realize that the world doesn't end and that no one from the audience is going to run up to you and say, "You made a mistake." That's really important. It's actually so obvious. But somehow it's not, because this fear is deeply rooted in us, that if we make a mistake, or that the conductor will come to us afterwards and give us a hard time, but that's not going to happen. And if that does happen, then you should ask yourself whether you want to keep playing in that orchestra or ensemble. Afterwards, ask your friends and acquaintances how it was, and try to swallow your inner criticism. Allow these people to enjoy the music and to simply find what you did great and beautiful. That's important. They might get to know you from a completely different side, and you always have to assume that they have no idea about music at all, and that they simply lack the ability to judge things the way you do, like whether that low C on the saxophone came out softly. They can't really assess that. So give yourself the chance to simply enjoy it. Try to understand that and accept it as well. When you're on stage, allow yourself to fully focus on your piece and block everything else out. Total focus on just that one thing. The more often you play, the more you'll notice that it feels like being part of something bigger, and you'll also develop a greater sense of humility towards the pieces. So it can also show itself in the way that you get really excited about these things, that you're really looking forward to it. Like, now comes that piece. Wow, I just love playing it. And of course you have your tricky spots. But still, the music is what matters most, not how you play it, or whether you make a mistake, or if something might go wrong. In the end, that's the way you can learn incredibly well, in addition to your scale studies and your saxophone lessons. That's where you go out into real life and apply everything you've learned. And you can do that no matter whether you're at music school, playing alone, in a music club, in an orchestra, in a big band, in a quartet, wherever. You can organize that for yourself. It's possible. I hope that was helpful. This time it was a bit of a different input, a bit more on the mindset side. If you've signed up for my newsletter, you know that from time to time there are also topics and input about this subject. I'd be happy if you leave me a like and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done that yet, now's the best time to hit the button. 2001. If you have any questions, of course you can leave a comment below. Suggestions, criticism, just leave a comment below. I enjoy discussing things with you. I'm interested in your opinion and what you think about it. I wish you a great time, and I hope we'll see each other again soon in the next video. See you soon. Take care.